and welcome again. Today we have the special honor of hearing from Sam Lee from UGM. And I only just met Sam like half hour ago, but he has known Ted for quite some time, right? From Lord's Grace, is that right? A few years? Yeah. 10 years, okay. Yeah, and so Sam was a pastor for 25 years in Vancouver. Was that all that time in Vancouver? And a little bit in Ontario, yeah. Before joining with UGM, Union Gospel Mission here in Vancouver. And when he's not, I guess, at UGM, he's busy coaching his kids on their various sports teams. So maybe we'll hear more about that too. Would you join with me as we welcome Sam and to hear his story today?
Thank you, Pastor Diana. Thank you, church, for welcoming me. I'm going to get something out now so you're not distracted and wondering the whole time. I'm not Chinese. I am Korean. I know some people don't believe that. I go to a Chinese restaurant, they all speak to me in Chinese, so I'm like, I must look Chinese. But then I realized everybody, like Chinese restaurant, they speak to everybody in Chinese. So I'm like, oh, maybe I don't look Chinese. But then I go to a Korean restaurant and they speak to me in English. So I'm like, oh, I must look Chinese. So rather than having you distracted the whole time trying to figure out if I'm Chinese or Korean, I'll get it out in the open. I am Korean. There you go. I know we lost in soccer. Thank you for having me. As Pastor Diana shared, I'm Sam. I'm manager of church relations at Union Gospel Mission. I've been there for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I pastored almost 20 years in Vancouver at Lord's Grace Church, and prior to that at a Korean church. And growing up, I grew up in a Christian home. I was always told, love your neighbor, love your neighbor. Went to Regent, studied, was always told, love your neighbor. But nobody ever taught me how to love my neighbor. Nobody ever told me what it looks like to love your neighbor. Korean church, Chinese church, somebody walks in, similar background, looks like me, similar socioeconomic background. I'm not bad at loving them. But when somebody who looks nothing like me, who I don't have a lot in common with, comes walking through, I have a lot harder time. And I remember the first time when I was at the Korean church here, I had a gentleman knock on our church door, and because he spoke English, they came and got me. They're like, you deal with him. And the guy comes and he's like, my car broke down, I don't have money, can I get some money for gas? And I'm like, sorry, no. And then I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. And over time, I found myself kind of stumbling, trying to figure out, how do I interact with people who are coming and asking me for money? And part of that is shaped by my third week in Vancouver. I lived on UBC campus, had a class at Carey, and early in the morning, 7:45, Buddy and I are walking to class, and this gentleman, nicely dressed, comes up and says, excuse me, I don't normally do this, but my car broke down. Can you spare some money? And so me and my friend, good new seminary students, we're like, sure. Dig out some cash and give him some money, and we pat ourselves on the back, good job. There you go, loving your neighbor, and we went on our way. Felt good about ourselves until the following Thursday. We're walking to class, and the same gentleman comes up and goes, excuse me, I don't normally do this, but... And as soon as he said that, I'm pretty sure it was me. I'd like to think it wasn't, but I'm pretty sure it was me. One of us, pretty sure it was me. It's like, get out of here, you did this to us last week, and basically chased him away. So with that in the back of my mind, serving at a church, I'm trying to figure out, how do I love my neighbors? I know I'm supposed to, but I don't know what to do. And so for years, kind of fuddled around trying to figure out what to do. And I remember, some of you may know him, his name's Bill Wong. He was the manager of the New Westminster Resource Center. He would connect with me, asking to meet up and see how I was doing. And one day we were trying to figure out, how do I connect with our neighbors and love our neighbors? And I asked him, like, hey, you work at UGM. UGM feeds people. Any thoughts on how we can love our neighbors? And he's like, funny you should ask. That's what I do. And I was like, really? I thought you just took me out for breakfast all the time. That's what we did. He would call me up. He's like, hey, you want to go for breakfast? Okay, sure. And so I learned about UGM through Bill. I learned about church relations through Bill. And so when this position came up, I was at a point in time at the church where I knew my time there was coming to an end, but I didn't know what was next. And so I applied. Long story short, I applied, and within a week and a half, I had an offer. Like, to go to Lord's Grace took me like 6 months. But to go to UGM, I had an offer in a week and a half. And so at that point, I was pretty sure that God was calling me to go to UGM. And so now at UGM, I get to do what Bill did. At least that's what my daughter thinks. She thinks I've got the greatest job. She's like, all you do is go out and eat with pastors. Like, that's the best job. I'm like, it's not all I do. I do it a lot, but that's not all I do. I do other stuff too. I connect with churches. I'll go speak at churches. I'll do workshops for churches and schools and Christian schools and organizations. But I get to connect with churches and pastors and share about what's going on, hear from them. If pastors just want to talk and need somebody to vent to, I'm happy to let them vent. If they want to talk about how they can engage their neighborhood, I'm happy to do that. If they are thinking, hey, I want to do this in my neighborhood, but I've got no idea how to start, I'm happy to go, hey, I know somebody somewhere else. They're doing this in their church. Do you want me to connect you with them? And I'm happy to do that as well. So I do more than just eat, but maybe I eat too much. I do get to eat a bit, and I get to connect with pastors and hear about the amazing things that churches are doing. Because honestly, when I was at Lord's Grace, I knew a little corner of the Chinese church, and that's it. I didn't know anything else. When I was at the Korean church, I knew a little corner of the Korean church, and I knew nothing else. But in this position, I get to hear from churches and pastors throughout the Lower Mainland and in Victoria. And not only do I get to hear those stories, but I get to share them with other churches. I met a pastor in Port Coquitlam, and he was saying whenever they do a neighborhood day, they have a ton of Persians coming in. And he's like, I don't know how to connect with them. And I'm like, hey, I know a pastor in North Van who's, most of the people coming into their program are Persians. Do you want me to introduce you to him? And he's like, yeah, please. And so I connected them, and they worked together to set up their program. I get to do things like that, and I love that. I get to talk to people and hear about what they're doing, but I also get to share the stories about the good that Christians and churches are doing in the Lower Mainland and Victoria. Because what does the news tell us? The news tell us Christians are horrible, all the bad things that have happened. But there's actually a ton of good that churches are doing. There's meal programs throughout the Lower Mainland of churches that are sacrificing, giving up their time and effort and energy to do a community meal. Community meal, so when I was at Lord's Grace, we were part of a community meal with 4 other churches. I thought we were going to be feeding all homeless people. It wasn't. It was almost entirely working poor and lonely people, socially isolated, all before COVID. These were people who been in kits for years, so couldn't afford to move because their rent was controlled, but all their friends had left. And so they were isolated, and they were coming not because, some of them were coming because they were working poor. They had to pick between food and their housing, but a lot were coming because they were sick of sitting, eating meals in front of their TV. And they wanted to connect with people. So I get to share stories like those about the things that churches are doing with churches, and hopefully inspire churches to want to do more, to love our neighbors. That's a little bit about how I ended up at UGM. But maybe I can ask, What do you guys know about UGM? Anybody? I hear you're an interactive bunch. So what do you guys know about UGM? I thought you had a microphone and you're lifting it up to answer. Yes. Yep. Anyone else? Yes. Yep. I thought I saw another hand over here. Yes. Oh, yeah. I know Rory. We did our intro, our orientation together. Absolutely. You guys are much better off than I was. Only thing I knew about UGM was we fed people. Prior to me starting, it's like, we just feed people. Usually 3 times a year, Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Once I started to realize, wow, we actually do a lot more than that. So this is what I love about UGM. This is our mission statement. Demonstrating the love of Christ, Union Gospel Mission is determined to transform communities by overcoming poverty, homelessness, and addiction, one life at a time. We are trying to wrestle with poverty, homelessness, and addiction, and we're trying to give hope and help those who are wrestling with poverty, homelessness, and addiction. As you can imagine, it is not an easy job. It is, I've got a pretty good job because I get to go and meet with pastors, but a lot of our frontline staff, they're amazing to be able to do what they do. The way we do it, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is what we call our continuum of care: mobile mission, outreach, meals, women and families, emergency shelter, gateway, sanctuary, blah, blah, all of those things. If you're really interested, you can find it on the website or I can send it to you. So when I started at UGM, all I knew was food. And when I started working, they're like, you can eat here too. I'm like, sweet. It's like, I get to go out and eat. I get to eat here. This is pretty good. But I realized they do a lot more. And I live in Langley. I hate driving in traffic. So when I started, there were a couple of coworkers who lived right by me. We would drive in together. We would carpool at 6 a.m. We would come in about 7 o'clock. It would take us an hour, and I'm like, it can't take this long. So I started figuring out, and I finally figured out the sweet spot's 5:30. If I leave at 5:30, I can be in by 6. And what I started seeing was when I come in at 6, oh, sorry, I skipped ahead. When we were coming in at 7, the line would go around the building to the parkade, and that line was of people who were waiting for food. And I remember one of the times we pulled in, the lineup did not look like my stereotype of what the lineup should look like. I thought it would be people who are homeless, disheveled, haven't showered in a while, maybe, I'm sure if you've driven through downtown Eastside, hunched over because they can't stand up. And as I'm pulling in, what I noticed was Chinese seniors, men and women in line, seniors. And I was like, that must just be a one-off. But as we kept coming in at 7 o'clock, I noticed more and more. Every time there were Chinese seniors standing in line. And so I asked one of our outreach workers, and he said, yeah, we're seeing seniors from Chinatown come in more and more because they're on a fixed income. As seniors, they're on a fixed income, but the cost of living is going up. And so they have to choose between housing, which a lot of them have been there for years, so it's cheap, or food. And so now, because everything is becoming more expensive and harder for them to survive, they are coming into the shelter, coming into this is called Cornerstone. This is where the meals are served. And they're coming in for that free meal because that helps them get through the week, get them through the month. I was blown away because that's not what I thought. My stereotype was it's going to be all homeless people who are dirty, who have not showered, who are coming in for a free meal. And when I started realizing those aren't the only people who are in need of our services, it was surprising. More and more we're hearing stories of how food banks, local food banks, the number of people using the food banks has gone up. The amount of money the food banks need to feed people, the amount of money we need to feed people is going up because the cost of food, the cost of gas, everything is going up. This is not getting better. This is getting worse. Because everything is so expensive, we are seeing more and more people coming in, making use of our free food. With the free food, they can come in and get free clothes, socks, mitts in the winter, jackets in the winter, but people will come in sometimes just to get out of the rain. I've driven in and it is pouring rain and you see people lying on the streets with a cardboard box over them. How well do you think a cardboard box keeps them dry? So this, the other one, when I started, my office was on the second floor, which is the same floor that the men's shelter is on. So the men's shelter, people can come in. We have 98 beds. People can come in, stay the night, shower. The shelter staff will take their clothes, wash it for them, and give it back to them in the morning. And they have to leave by 7 a.m. And so as I started coming in at 6, I would come in, go and grab my coffee, and what I started seeing was gentlemen who were, because this is just a men's shelter, gentlemen who were dressed better than me, some of them with like a rolling laptop bag, some of them with like a backpack, looks like a laptop bag. And so again, I asked our frontline staff, like, what's going on? And they said, because the cost of housing is so high, some of the people who are coming in are employed, but they can't afford a place to live. And so they're coming in, staying in our shelters. They come in, shower, get cleaned, and then go to work. And it floored me that we can work in the city of Vancouver and in Metro Vancouver, yet still not afford to have a place to live. More and more people are falling into this situation. Latest City of Vancouver report that came out on homelessness said that 30% of the people who are homeless are seniors. When they're talking about homelessness, seniors start at the age of 55, but 30% of the people who were counted as homeless in the city of Vancouver are 55 and up. I don't know about you guys, but like I sleep wrong. Like this morning I woke up and my neck was, I slept wrong. I can't imagine being 55, 60, 65, 70 and having to sleep on the concrete because you're homeless now. And a lot of the times it's not because they did anything wrong, it's because the cost of living has gone up. One of our outreach people were telling the story of the gentleman who had been coming in, had been coming in to get food and shelter. And when they asked him and talked with him, what they found out was he lived in Strathcona, had been in that place for years, so rent was really cheap, but he had a health emergency. And so he went to the hospital. He was in the hospital for like a month and a half. And when he came out, his landlord had changed the locks, thrown all his stuff out, and basically evicted him. He didn't know where the guy was. The guy didn't know how to contact him. He was in the hospital with a health emergency. He comes back out, and now he's got no place to live. I grew up with a stereotype that homeless people were lazy. Homeless people made bad decisions. A lot of the times people end up in the situation they're in because of things that have happened to them. So about a year and a half ago, our marketing department put out a story of a gentleman who had been coming into UGM. Guy looked really, really reasonable, really nice, and he shared his story, and his story was he and his wife had recently separated. He has a job. He can't afford to pay for his wife and daughter to stay in the place and for him to get a place. And so he made a decision. He made the conscious decision. He was going to let his wife and daughter stay in their home. He was going to live out of the car. He intentionally made himself homeless, not because he was lazy, not because he was made bad decisions. This was a decision for the benefit of his separated wife and daughter. We don't know what people are going through as they come into UGM. We don't. We don't know what people have gone through to get to this point. That's why we want to show them the love of Christ. That's why we want to care for them. Part of that is a meal. Part of that is shelter. But a big part of that is showing them grace and love and dignity, offering dignity. When you don't have a home, when you don't have access to a lot of things, being given a choice as to what you can eat and what you don't eat, that gives dignity. I don't know if anybody here has ever gone to a food bank, but through this position, I've been to several food banks, and I hear the same thing over and over. They prepare a bag, usually a paper bag, put stuff in it, and when you come in, you get the bag and you leave. That's it. It sounds okay. We're getting food. But as I started talking to others, churches, organizations that are doing things a little bit differently, the word dignity kept coming up. When you're just given a bag of whatever, there's no dignity in that. But when you can go through and pick the food that you want, the things that you like, there's dignity because you get to choose. I grew up here, so I eat Western food. But if I had to eat Western food every single day, I would go crazy. Most food banks don't offer Asian food. North Shore and Tri-Cities, the Persian population is booming. So one of the churches in Coquitlam has been working with an organization called House of Omid, which is run by a Christian. He's Persian and he runs the organization to stock the pantry of the church with Persian food. That way, when Persians come in, they can see food that they are used to, that they like, that they enjoy, and they can pick it instead of having to take potatoes. I don't know what else Western food is. Potatoes and hamburgers. But there's dignity when there is choice. There's dignity when there's choice. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to love our neighbors by giving them dignity and choice. One of the other stories, so we've got a Women and Family Center. We've got our 601 East Hastings, which is kind of where all the men's stuff is done. And then across the alley is our Women and Family Center. My understanding is until prior to this being born, like there's addiction services, food services, there's a lot of things going on here. Prior to this building being built, there were very, very few recovery centers for women and their children. So if you are a woman who has just had a baby, but also addicted, you have a choice. Prior to this, you had a choice. You can go into recovery and give up your child. You can stay addicted and keep your child. Anybody like those choices? I can't imagine what the women, the mothers went through faced with those choices. So 2 years ago, Women and Families has been around for about 5 years. 2 years ago, we built a women's recovery center on the island called Arrow Home. Similar. Prior to that, if you were a woman on the island in addiction wanting to go through recovery, you had 3 choices then. Leave the island and come to Women and Families, or one of the few organizations that have something like Women and Families, but you're leaving all your friends, family, your community, everything you know. 2, stay addicted and keep your child. Or 3, give up your child to social services, and enter a recovery program. I can't imagine women having to make that decision. To get sober means to lose your child. To keep your child means staying addicted. When we opened up our Arrow Home, that's what it's called in Victoria, we heard from so many churches about how amazing it was that women could keep their infant in recovery on the island, because we were the first one on the island like that. UGM has a ton of stuff. We do a ton of things. A lot of it is recovery related. We also, 2 years ago, we also opened up a 50-acre women's recovery center in Langley. Beautiful farmland, 50 acres with horses, goats, chickens. It's amazing. And the women there have the option to work the land and do other things, not just be stuck in a house. They've got opportunities to move around. I know the stereotype is often addicts, they're whatever. I'm sure we've got our own stereotypes. One of the great things about working at UGM, we have several, I'm sure there's women, but as a man, I'm not really allowed into the Women and Family Center. On the men's side, we have several men who have gone through the recovery program who are now working at UGM. And the camaraderie they have between each other, the camaraderie they have with other guys who are going through the recovery program, it's something I have never seen. So when I first started, I went to the recovery celebration for the men. And I saw these people and I didn't know who they were. After about 5 times, I started figuring out who they were. I started figuring out half the guys there, more than half the guys there, are guys who've gone through the program who are now working at UGM. But because they've gone through the program, they understand what it takes to get through. They understand what the other guys who are going through the program now need and how difficult it is. And so they give up their own time to go and journey with the men going through the recovery program. And so when those men get to graduate, they want the guys who have journeyed with them. They want the guys who've been there with them, that they've been able to open up to and share with. Part of that recovery program journey is being able to open up and be honest and share. That's something that probably most of us don't feel comfortable doing. But when they go through the recovery program, part of that recovery process is opening up, basically bearing yourself to these brothers. And because of that, the camaraderie, the community they have is amazing. I forget what else I've got up here. I think I'm running short on time, correct? So, sorry, I've got like a whole bunch of notes, but I didn't even look at them. So I got to fast forward to where I'm at now. So, part of my journey in coming here, or after I came to UGM, about 6 months in, I did my first workshop at a church for a group of Anglican ministers. And as I was preparing the workshop, I came across something that said, the majority of people who are homeless and or addicted have gone through 3 major traumas in the past 18 months. The 3 most common, loss of health, probably shouldn't use that finger, loss of health, loss of a loved one, loss of a job. And when I read that, I stopped. And I thought back. This was about March 2024. I stopped and I thought back. Because in May 2023, I had emergency back surgery. I went into the emergency on a Tuesday. I had surgery on the following Monday. They say it takes forever. It took me 6 days to have a back surgery. May 2023. September 2023, my dad passed away. October 2023, I resigned from Lord's Grace Church. In November 2023, I started at Union Gospel Mission. In like a 5-month stretch, 6-month stretch, I went through loss of health, loss of loved one, not loss of a job, I didn't get fired, but I quit, I changed my career. Those are 3 pretty dramatic changes, events. And I stopped and I thought, statistically, I could have ended up homeless or addicted. But by the grace of God, by the support of friends and family around me, I didn't. I know it's easy for us to think that addiction, poverty, homelessness, it's out there. It's somebody else's problem. The reality is, most of us probably know somebody who is addicted. It may not be alcohol, it may not be drugs, but we probably know somebody who's a workaholic. Sorry, I'm going to stick to the stereotypes. Asians. How many Asians gamble? We probably know somebody who's addicted to gambling. We probably know somebody who's addicted to their phone, can't put their phones down. We probably know somebody who's addicted to food. Every time they feel sad, they go and start eating. More and more, I'm realizing people who are in addiction, in recovery, people who are homeless, they are just like you and me. They are somebody made in the image of God who needs Jesus as their Savior, just like you and I do. They're not there and us over here. We're all in this together. I could have easily ended up on the street. But by the grace of God, through family support, friends support, I didn't. Odds are you guys probably know somebody who is addicted. Maybe they're covering it up really well. Or maybe they're going through stuff that could potentially lead them to addiction. And again, they're covering it up really well. Reach out. Reach out to your friends. Reach out to those around you, especially if you know that they're going through something like a health crisis, loss of a loved one. Reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to go for lunch? Do you want to grab a coffee? That really could be any one of us. So one of the things that I'm really trying to do in my role is to humanize these problems. When I first came to Vancouver, I came from Ontario. Don't hate me. I came from Ontario, and I came out here, and people kept telling me, don't go to the downtown Eastside. But I had a buddy who came from Ontario too, and we were like, how bad could it be? Come on, let's go. So one day we decided to go drive through the downtown Eastside. And I remember as we were driving on Hastings, getting closer to Maine, both of us trying to look cool. Didn't say anything. This was a while ago. So those who are closer in age to me, you guys will understand. Some of the younger ones, you may not understand. As we're getting closer, both of us are like locking the door because it had like the little thing that popped up. That's how you lock it. So we're both trying to be cool and like push it down. And then I'm like looking straight ahead, but I can see out of the corner of my eye, both of us grab the window handle and we're rolling up the window. We're trying to be cool, but we had never seen anything like that. We were so freaked out that we were locking the door, rolling up the handle, rolling up the window. And now I think back and I was like, wow, the stereotypes that I grew up with shaped me to think that these were bad people. Reality is there's someone's son or daughter, someone made in the image of God who needs Jesus just like we do. So one of the things that I want to do is really humanize that the people who are in need are just like you and me. Circumstances, things that have happened to them have led them to this. Gabor Mate, who's a Vancouver-based physician, used to be, I don't think he's here anymore. He worked in the downtown Eastside, and he said every woman that he met in addiction had been sexually abused or assaulted at one point. He says that addiction is a result of trauma. People have gone through something horrible, and if you don't know how to deal with it, what do? You try to deaden the pain. I had back pain for years. What did I do? Tylenol. When the Tylenol didn't work, doctor, can I get something stronger? I tried to deaden the pain. That's what people who are in addiction are trying to do. They've gone through something and they don't know how to deal with it, and they're trying to deaden the pain. They're trying to numb it. They don't want to feel it anymore. Nobody grows up thinking, when I grow up, I want to be an addict. They grow up with these dreams, with these fantasies, these ideals that they want to pursue, but stuff happens. And in trying to deal with it, not knowing how to deal with it, oftentimes they end up addicted because they don't know how to deal with it. So then, what can we do? How can we love our neighbor? Still goes back to, I've told you love your neighbors, but I haven't helped you. I haven't helped you love your neighbor in any way. What can we do? As I get older, I think Jesus told us right there. We just didn't pay attention. Verse 27, he answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind. I know we know this. I know you guys know this. But if we are going to help anybody, if we are going to love anybody, we have to love the Lord first. Nothing good can come from us without God. So as we know God's love for us, then we can turn around and love one another. I think we know that, right? Anybody here not know that? No, don't put your hands up. I don't want to put anyone on the spot. I think we all know that. What took me longer to figure out was the second part. Love your neighbor as yourself. See, I always knew the love your neighbor. The part that I forgot was the as yourself. And I started to realize, I don't really love myself that much. I look at the mirror and I can spot every single flaw. My hair is not on the top of my head. It's on my back. No, it's not on my back. I wish I had more hair. I wish I was taller. I wish I was skinnier. You'd think I could do something about the skinnier part, not the taller part, but I look at the mirror and I can tell you all the things that I don't like about me. How often do I look at that mirror and see the things that I should be going, wow, God did a really good job? And I think that's where a lot of us have trouble with this. We know to love our neighbor, but in order to do that, we have to love ourselves first. That's why it says, love your neighbor as yourself. And I think a lot of us have trouble loving ourselves. Come on, we're Asian. Most of us here are Asian. How many of your parents said, my parents always said to me, I'd come home with a 98%. They'd be like, where's the other 2%? I know you guys heard that. Like most people at my church heard it. We grow up with all the people telling us all the things we did wrong, all the things that we could do better. How many of us grew up being told, wow, you are a child of God. You are made in the image of God. Do you know that when God looks at you, he sees somebody so worthy, he sent his only son to die for you? Nobody told me that. Not once did anybody tell me that. But that's how God looks at us. He looks at us and sees us as someone so worthy, he sent his only son to die on the cross for us. And I think in order for us to really love our neighbors, we need to start loving ourselves the way God loves us. Instead of complaining about the things that we don't like, instead of complaining about the things that should change or we wish would change, realize, wow, God made me damn good. Sorry for the language. God made me damn fine. Right? Whoever said yeah. But how many of us are comfortable saying that? But that's what God did. He looks at us and says, you are worthy enough for my son to die for you. So I think for us to be able to love our neighbors, we have to be able to love ourselves. That starts with loving God. And as we love God and realize how God sees us and loves us, I think we need to understand that more and really live out God's love for us. Because as we do that, then we learn to love our neighbors. Because until we love ourselves, how are we supposed to love our neighbors as ourselves? I was trying to end on a happy note, but sorry. I heard you guys are interactive, so I'm going to throw out there. For like 30 seconds to a minute, on your own, think about somebody you know who may need somebody to reach out to them and say, hey, how are you guys doing? Maybe they're going through a hard time. Maybe they're lost a loved one. Maybe they're having health issues. So when my health issues, when my back went, it wasn't just my back is gone. I haven't played hockey since then. And I know you guys are looking at me like, oh, poor guy, he lost his hockey career? You mean he probably could have gone pro or something? No, I wasn't that good. But what hockey was to me was when my mom died, hockey was what kept me going. Because I played hockey with a group of big white guys, and I was a goalie. Sorry, I don't mean to be offensive. This is just how I speak, and these are the guys that I played with. They were big white guys, and if I didn't show up as a goalie, I knew they were going to hunt me down and not beat me up, but give me a really hard time. Where the heck were you? We didn't have a goalie. And having that responsibility made me get up at 5:30 every morning to go play. Actually, it was 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock to go play hockey. And because I went and played hockey, it got me through the loss of my mom. Because it got me moving. It kept me going. It had me exercising, releasing endorphins. This was all before I knew any of this. It was just, I loved playing hockey, and these guys would kick my butt. I'm trying to tone down my language. Would kick my butt if I did not go show up. And so for me, not being able to play hockey, it's not just I can't get exercise. I tell my wife I can't get exercise. But it was a really big part for me because that was what got me through when my mom passed away. And so not being able to play hockey for the last 3 years, it has really driven me kind of stir crazy. So maybe you know somebody who's going through a health challenge. Maybe it doesn't seem like that big a deal to you, but for them, it may be huge. Take 30 seconds to a minute. Think about one person you can reach out to and just say, hey, how are you doing? And then maybe get together with a couple of people and share with them to keep yourselves accountable, each other accountable. This is a person that came to mind. I'm going to sometime this week do this, call them up for coffee or invite. When I came out here, people told me nobody invites you over to their house in Vancouver, and it's kind of true, so just call them up for coffee. But I will let you guys have 5-10 minutes like that, and then I'll hand this over to you. Sorry, I think I went long.
All right. So maybe you could turn to your neighbor, share who you're going to reach out to. Is that the invitation? All right. Yeah, we'll take 5 minutes to do that. Well, I hope Sam's sharing sparked some ideas and conversations. FYI, if some of you are interested in volunteering with UGM, you can do as individuals. If two or three of you want to get together and volunteer, he suggests actually going through their website and going through that process. If there are families can volunteer together, or if there's a larger group of us that want to go, then we would have to check in with Sam and figure out ways of how to do that as a group. It takes a little bit more work and coordination. And so, yeah, I hope that gives you some ideas. Do pray for the work of UGM. And yeah, do pray for Sam and all the churches involved as well, and particularly for the people. Were you also wanting to do a picture?
Yes, please, after. Thank you, everybody, for gathering the cooling kits. This is such a blessing for us to be able to.
How about we give a hand to Sam?